The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
What you were saying about it was Edward Fowler. I was really enjoying you were so gracious with him and patient and kind. That's why I was like, this is a good guy. And there's a couple of quotes that you said. One of them was, and he was asking about risks that you were going to take, and you're like, I want to live and have a good, safe life as much as I can. And you said just being in the entertainment business enough that's
absolutely, that's the biggest risk of all.
So you were 10 years old when you first got the bug for magic. 8 or 10? 10 was?
10, yeah, 10.
And I loved that you said, I went and I got every book that I could.
Absolutely, and I still do. I still do that.
So did you go to the library? Or
I did, yeah. I went to the public library. It was summer. The show was in summer, we saw. And then I went to the public library, and I got all of the books they had on magic.
That is, and you read, and a lot of people don't go to the library anymore. I wish.
Well, remember, this was pre-internet. The internet was the library back then. You'd have to go for research projects for school. The library is more of a thing. We would even get videotapes back then from the library times.
Now, I'm not going to ask. Don't date yourself. But was your library did they have the card catalog or the microfiche?
I remember in elementary school we had to learn how to use it, but we had the computers for sure. So
Okay, that's good. That's good.
But that's how dated back. We had to learn the Dewey Decimal System in elementary school.
No, you didn't. You didn't learn the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah.
The guest that I had on before, very, very young lady, and started out at 8 years old, sitting in audiences and getting to know the wrestlers at local promotions and whatnot, and then getting the attention because she was so young and she would dress like the wrestlers. And now fast forward, she's in high school. She's got her own show. She goes and sits outside of arenas when wrestling shows come and commentates. And she's not only training to be a wrestler, but she is, she said Plan B, and I just look at it as an extension of the brand. She said, I am going to learn how to do broadcasting, and then maybe I could do both if I had an injury. Sure. And really, really planning and thinking about it. And so when I hear you just basically said at 10 years old, I'm going to be a magician. I'm going to be an illusionist. There was no other option for you. And then we'll talk about what your other option said that it might be, because I love that. But what did you say to your parents? I'm just going to do this.
Well, growing up, luckily, looking back now, my parents made me do sports camps like basketball and soccer and things like that.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I had a really diverse, growing up youth, and I hated it because I was so uncoordinated. The team sports, I was terrible. I was forced to play basketball and baseball, and I think in 5 years of youth sports, I've made one basket. I was that bad. And the coaches always said I understood the game so much in my mind, it just I sucked at it. But so looking back, I was glad I did it. But my passions growing up were entertainment. My heroes back then were Walt Disney and Steven Spielberg and Jim Henson, people who I still think are the greatest magicians ever, and they're still my heroes today. But my passions was I put on shows in the neighborhood, and I would try to do theater camp and try to get on stage and try to understand the production. My favorite TV shows were behind the scenes shows about movie making or movie magic.
Really?
Or the Disney Channel would actually show behind the scenes of a new attraction or of a new Broadway show. So those were my obsessions as a kid, and I mean obsessions. So I was really into entertainment my whole life, and that's where my heart was. So I always knew I'd do something in that realm. My book reports in school, back to the library. Anytime I had to do a book report, it'd be over Walt Disney or somebody in the film business or something, in the theater world, something that I was passionate about. But when I was 10 and I saw a magic show, it was like an epiphany. It wasn't like, oh, this would be cool to do, or I want to do this. It was like I received direct orders that this would be what I would do with my life.
It's so important, and that we all listen to Rob's story, because there are a lot of people who, they're 40, they're 50 years old, and they don't know what their passion is, or when you talk to some kids that are in their 20s and they're like, I don't know what I want to do. And I always tell people, I think that you do know what
I
you
agree.
wanna do.
I agree. I think it's we often mistake a passion or life calling with a job.
Mhm.
And it's very, I think, very rare that the passion or the calling has to do with a job. There's some people who are, I think, true angels or true saints of the world who are amazing. They obviously have the calling to help and serve others, and they are some of the most inspiring stories I've heard in my life. And they have all sorts of weird jobs. So your job, your calling, and there's some artists who who can't sustain themselves as an artist, but they have some of the most amazing masters of their craft, but they have to have a job to survive. So I think we often confuse a passion with as though it would be a lucrative, safe, comfortable job. But maybe your calling, your passion has nothing to do with your job or your income. Maybe it's helping others. Maybe it's creating something. Maybe it's contributing for something. And I think we also like people are afraid to trust themselves. So I think we all know what our passions are, even if it's multitude of passions. It's just, we're afraid to take this first step to go for pursuing the passions.
That's a really, really good point. I have not had somebody else come on any of the podcasts or live streams that I've got a column in the Los Angeles Tribune, and I would actually love to, if we'll talk about it off air, but maybe we could convert some of this. In fact, I'm writing down 634 because that was a really great point.
Oh, thank you. I hope I remember so I could say it again.
No, I that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
If you would allow me to turn this podcast,
Sure, I would be honored.
Okay, into an article in the Los Angeles Tribune. I always try to do anything that's positive, uplifting, and helpful. And it just sounds like your entire brand is like that. And I'd like to ask you, like, if shit hit the fan for you in your life that pivoted you to being so positive and like literally kind. Like I listened to your whole hour with Edward, and you're just like, no matter what that guy threw at you, you had a positive, kind response. And even at the end, he was like, oh, you're a great guy and you've got time for everybody. And you like very gently and kindly corrected him and said, I don't have like time for everything in the universe. I do my best to make time. And people say to me like, oh, you're just such a better person because you answered my tweet and I'm like, I happened to catch your tweet and I responded, but like it would be you guys have to realize like it would be a full-time job for any of us that are out in the public space to be answering messages all day long. That would be a really great job, but like we do have to keep the lights on and
absolutely.
Thank you for your time
and we need our own personal time too. You need to tune off at some point.
What is that? Don't people
I don't know what it is, but I'm told we need it. I didn't need to figure that out.
And so let me go back to my question. Yeah. Did something happen in your life where you had a dark time or you had hard times and things weren't as rosy as we all see them now? And then what did you do to transform them into who you are now? That's important that people know that.
So I say knowing that being a magician or illusionist was my life calling is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because, to be so confident as a kid that this is what I need to do, I didn't have to pursue other careers or other things. I was pretty focused. It's a curse because anytime there's a setback, it hits harder because you feel like this is what you're going to do. And
it's personal.
It is. And so why are these obstacles in my way? What's not happening? What's preventing me? So that hits you on a much personal level. So I had to really balance and separate myself from the brand as much as I could. Even like my face behind you. I have to be able to look at myself objectively and not, personally say, oh, that's me on a billboard or, oh, that's me there. I have to look like from a marketing perspective as though as a model or a product or anything else. So, but the one of the darkest times, and I learned the most from this, and I think this is why it happened. Several years ago, probably almost a decade ago, I had an offer to perform in Thailand for 3 years. And it was a long contract. It was a really exciting deal. And from the get-go, and the money was great. But from the get-go, there's something inside me that said, don't do this. Mm-hmm. And so I called my mentors, my friends. I said, look this over. What am I missing? There's something here not right. And they all said, you're foolish. This is a dream. This is perfect. This is great. So they flew me to Thailand. They were actually building the theater for my specifications. I flew to Thailand for like 24 hours to check out the housing where I would live and my staff would live, see how the theater's coming along, approve the marketing, all this stuff. And I flew back, and the day I was back, we sent all of my equipment to Thailand. I actually canceled the lease on my warehouse, and I sent everything overseas. And because it was a long contract, I actually upset and offended and pissed off a few clients that we canceled dates, because you have to take the bigger long-term sit-down residency over a few one-nighters here and there. So I canceled it, and I spent all of my money, all my savings at that time to get things ready, build new cases, repair props, build some new illusions, and everything got shipped off to Thailand. It took about 40 days to go there on some ocean containers. And a couple of days after my equipment left, I woke up in the morning, got an email, not even a phone call, an email from these Thailand promoters saying, we are having a dispute among the partners. We are closing the theater. The gig is not happening. You need to figure out how to get your stuff back.
Whoa. You need to figure out how to get your stuff back?
And then they wouldn't answer calls. They wouldn't answer emails. I had already put money in the, it was a mess. I had to spend a fortune to get my stuff back. And
oh my God.
So here I was broke. I had no warehouse because I closed my warehouse, as because we're done for 3 years. I don't need to pay an empty warehouse. I canceled gigs. I upset people. I think I'd even paid deposits for some of my cast and crew to for their down payment for them to travel. And so I was broke. All my gear was gone. I think I even got rid of my house that I was going to stay in.
Oh my God.
But at the same time, I felt relief. Almost like myself was telling myself, I told you so. That little voice that I ignored, which I couldn't explain, basically said, I told you so. And I felt relief, because it was like, I'm good at screwing things up. I'm human, I'm good. But sometimes when things screw up on that big of a scale, I'm not that good. I can't, I realize sometimes there are bigger forces at play kind of correcting me or reversing my path or redirecting my path. So at that point, what can I do besides throw my hands up in the air and say, okay, this was not meant to be. Something else was meant to be. Something else will come from this. And that was a lesson for me. Now I still had to work my ass off to get my stuff back and try to figure things out. But at the same time, I was able to remove the emotion and the depression and the trauma from it and say, this happened. It's not a personal. What choice did I have? I could have sulked. I could have been upset. But the thing is, the promoters and producers over there, it wasn't personal against me. They would have done this no matter who was going over there. So I couldn't take it as personally as I wanted to take it. And probably for a few weeks, I was livid with them and trying to, email them and have my lawyer try to contact them. But, ultimately, I had no choice but to move on. And I said, I can either let this keep dragging me down and play it over my mind again, or I can realize that something bigger, better needs to happen for me and just focus on finding what that is. And that was where I had to learn. And so I think that was one of my biggest learning opportunities, is to not let some trauma overtake me and overpower me, but really focus on finding the place I needed to be that resonated rightly, that I didn't have that voice saying, don't do that.
What came out good? What was I did movies since I was a little kid, and was put in therapy, just for
Sure.
Yeah, you're just what? Literally, I was working. You'll appreciate this, as an 8 to 10-year-old child, 2 years straight, no break, 2 to 3 shows a day.
Yeah.
Off Broadway. And I know you love your London shows and all that. And literally was having a mental breakdown because of sleep deprivation.
Oh, absolutely. And as a kid, that's traumatic, especially traumatic,
Very, very.
As an adult, you can choose to do that, but as a kid,
there was no choice.
Wow.
And I remember one therapist saying, which is beautiful word choices, is she would say, you have many gifts from the wound. And I was like, I love that. So what was your gift or gifts from that wound? What came out of that where you look back and say, because I too fell flat on my face, not that bigger than that, believe it or not. And I wouldn't take that bankruptcy and thinking that in my Beverly Hills lifestyle that I was better than everybody else. Now I'm holy shit. I get what people are going through paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Totally.
COVID taught us that. What did you take out of that crap storm? Because I'm losing breath just hearing that. That's,
it was several things. First of all, it's trusting your instincts. That was, there's nothing no red flag that said this is going to happen, but my instinct knew something wasn't right. So I think that was part of it. Trusting my instincts was a big part of it. And then also learning how not to let myself get down too much. Yeah. Get upset, get mad, get angry, but then you've got to move on. and you've got to move on to something bigger and better. And it's like when you focus on something like that, for the few months leading up to that, all of my focus, all my energy was on that project, that thing. And so I missed out other opportunities and other things that were just, in the way. So it's really just like focusing on trusting yourself is probably the biggest lesson. And then trusting yourself to keep moving forward.
So you love these non-traditional, like you didn't come up with Chris Angel or Penn and Teller or Houdini. Like those weren't your canned responses during different, interviews and podcasts. You pick somebody like Walt Disney, or you had another person that you said, or even the
Jim Henson and Steven Spielberg. Yeah.
Or the mentor.
Spielberg, yeah.
The Mets. I stepped over you. Say it again.
Sorry. Yeah, Jim Henson, Steven Spielberg. Who I think are wizards.
Yes, you say they're illusionists in their own right. And then the mentor that you had, and then you mentioned another mentor that you had that was local, that was a magician, but more like dealt with comedy. Mm-hmm. So, you start creating this brand on, I know you're working on this whole, God, what's his name? Thank you. What's the new one that you're working on? The guy's name, the wizard guy.
Oh, Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so fried. I can't always think. I can't speak. So where do you come up with the inspirations for your illusions? Are you what? You say like you go to London and you visit friends, and then you go to shows. Like, do you see something on the street and you're stimulated by it, or like what? Where do you draw from that? Because your stuff is a little out of the box, and I love it. Like,
so even as a kid, when I would go to the library, I would read every book cover to cover. And I was like, the first time a magic magazine wrote about me, I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I think now I do. They called me like sponges to water, like I am to magic. So I just absorb it all. And I didn't have a clue what that meant. And then some of my magic friends called me sponge for a while. But no, not a bad thing.
No, that's beautiful.
But so I've always absorbed these things and kind of filed away. And I've always slept with a notebook next to my bed and a pen, because I never know when an idea will come. And sometimes a full-fledged illusion idea will come to me in a dream or in the middle of the night, and I'll just write it down. I can be inspired by music, hearing a song that has a certain emotion or feel, or I can be inspired by something I see in a theater show, or especially I go to the Disney parks around the world. That's where I recharge, is going to a Disney park. And it just the perfect immersive environment they create is inspired, because it's so detailed, so elaborate. And it says, if they can create this amazing world around me flawlessly, what's my excuse? So being at Disney parks inspires me. But like over the pandemic, I was reading a lot of books. I was home for a year, and I said, okay, I'll be home for a year. So I've been reading a ton of books, especially books from the vaudeville era, with some of the greats of magic. And these guys, every illusion that's performed today, basically came out of the shows that these guys created. They created these illusions on their own, no power tools, no engineering shops. The fact they developed and invented these things, and all of our stuff is based on this. So just reading these accounts, these reports, and these reviews from hundreds of years ago, I have all these new inspirations. So what I think I'm kind of unique in the field is I won't usually buy a stock trick or order a trick out of a catalog. I will take ideas from this here, develop and put it into the way it needs to be. I created an illusion I spent about 3 years working on, and we just debuted it on a TV special this spring. And I had been working on it for 3 years, but for the 3 years, I had an idea what the mood would be, what the set would be like, what the feeling would be like, and then kind of waited 3 years to develop the illusions that fit perfectly in the sequence. And the illusions in that sequence changed drastically. In fact, a couple of them just came out of happy accidents through trial and error in the warehouse. But the mood, the style, the emotion that we created was the same. And that was, so my original inspiration was that emotion and that feeling, that vibe. And then I created the magic to support that story I wanted to tell.
So there's two stems that I want to go on from this.
Go for
it. What are we for time? Like, are we at
whatever you want? Whatever you want.
Okay, I'm going to split it into two, because I was just like, this guy is just amazing. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. So one of the things that I was going to go to is you can always tell, like I said, I've only gotten like one asshole in like 4 years of doing stuff on the realm. And then I did a lot of podcasting before that. But can always tell somebody's vibe by how willing they are. And granted, not just everybody, like I have a good following and, got a good rapport here. We're kind of on the same vibe. I appreciate that. A lot of the people in the wrestling world, and I didn't understand this. Like when I started in wrestling in 2002, I was the first original cast on TNA Wrestling, Impact Wrestling. And I lived in Beverly Hills, and I'd fly into Nashville and Orlando studios thinking that I was just the shit. I thought I was better than everybody else. And like, I looked down on everybody. It's the biggest mistake because I didn't realize the wrestling community and how powerful they are, and how these people that I don't say fans, I say supporters. In wrestling, they say marks, how powerful they really are on the love and support, like especially through the pandemic. Like I'm blown away. And when I say humbled, not like when people can that, I'm so humbled. Shut up. I am truly humbled at how they all rose to support me and so many independent contractors, workers, wrestlers, entertainers, singers, actresses. And, whether they support it on Patreon or other platforms, that's their business.
Sure.
I was blown away by the love. And so much of that comes from wrestling and how humble people are wanting to be on podcasts. And I think, again, in 4 years, I've had one person say like, well, how much do I get paid or whatever? Like I've had like some of the most amazing, huge talents, huge superstars on, and they are so humble.
Oh,
and
isn't that great?
Cool. It gives me goose chills because I'm like, you are to the core like a really good person. And a lot of that comes from the culture of wrestling comes from Carnival, Carney, vaudeville, that time. Like,
absolutely.
Do you almost feel sometimes like, because I was going to ask you, like, what does magic connect to? Because I pull from wrestling for music. I front a band and I do all this music stuff. And a lot of the musicians, Rob, they haven't hit ground bottom yet. They haven't hit rock bottom. They haven't fallen on their face. They are entitled and they feel like, just give it to me. And I'm really talented and everything should just happen for me. And I get really hot about that because I'm like, God helps those who help themselves. And you can be the most talented person ever, great voice, or you write beautiful songs. But if you're not out there actively promoting or trying to ask for help, like what good is that going to do? In the wrestling community, they're humble. They will travel for hours for $50 or for nothing. They'll set up the ring. They'll do all this stuff. What does magic, where does it pull from? You mentioned vaudeville. Does it pull from any other cultures? Is it a humble culture?
It's not, unfortunately, the magicians I consider my close friends is a very small group. Like I can count on one hand. And I was advised early on to kind of avoid the magic world because they're known for being very catty, petty. And for example, I was at Atlantis in the Bahamas for 3 years. And I think every magician in the world was mailing their DVDs, their promo kits in to try to steal my gig, including friends of mine. But now, luckily, the property is they liked me, and so most of the time they say, "Hey, we're gonna throw this away. Do you want it?" They tell me they'd bring me in to laugh at the stuff they're watching, and I was like, so I never felt threatened. I never felt threatened. But
that's a funny story. That's
the nature of the magic business. So luckily, my two mentors growing up really advised me to focus on the public and lay people and kind of and do my own thing. So a lot of the magic world kind of says, "Wait, who's this guy? Where did he come out of?" Because I've been fortunate to be working my whole life and not going to magic conventions or hanging at the Magic Castle or stuff, which I want to do sometime. But honestly, I'm sure I'll have a great time at the Magic Castle. A lot of my friends are there. But when I'm in LA with the day off, I usually go to Disneyland to that castle for a recharge.
That's a huge point. I want people listening to this. We want to remind everybody that we'll actually be truncating, actually perfect time to say this. We've had some great lessons from Rob Lake today, and we're going to ask him to kind of bookmark right now where to find him at. And then we're going to turn this into segment 2 because we all know that Papa Vince has asked our podcast to be 27 minutes or less. This is obviously going to go a little bit longer. So right now, before I get into the next question and talk about that, to your response to what you were just saying, where does everybody find you at? We've got a ticker at the bottom. It's Rob Lake Magic for Instagram and Twitter. Are you big on
Facebook as well? Yep.
Same with Facebook.
Rob Lake Magic on all the socials, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, Rob Lake Magic. And then my website is roblake.com.
And go look at that America's Got Talent. He's been doing things with the Armed Forces Entertainment for years, but they did have a really big special during the COVID. Check that out. Everybody go follow this guy. He is complete light and positivity and sunshine coming out of his rear end. Like, we want to support the good people in the world. So this has been the first rendition, the first episode. Section of Goldy's Closet episode. We're on episode 129, and I want to remind everyone just to be free out there, stay safe, but be free, and always stay golden. Rob, clap at the end of this one, and then we'll go into podcast number 2. Here we go. Yay! You're listening to Goldy's Closet. This is episode 130. This is the second half of a really informative, positive, uplifting, just awesome illusionist, magician, Mr. Rob Lake. You've seen him on America's Got Talent, on different television shows. There was one more that I can't remember right now, which was what as of late? Which one was it?
Game of Talents. We did this spring as well.
You did, and it's a game show that I heard, right?
It was. It's like the contestants were trying to guess my secret talent. I had to come out in street clothes and answer questions, and they had to guess what my talent, my vocation is.
And it was a firebomb, a human.
Yeah, they thought I was a human fireball, which I don't know what it is, but that's not what I do.
I don't know what it is either. We want to make sure that everybody looks at the ticker at the bottom and follows Rob Lake Magic on Instagram and Twitter. Checks out his website, Facebook as well. This is a little something different, bros, than just sports entertainment. And I know some of you guys love that, but you kind of have to expand your horizons a little bit. And we try to bring in really quality guests for you on Goldy's Closet, All New Realm Network, Russo's brand, to not only be entertained by, but be inspired, because we want to transfer this over into your life and have you hear things with these different guests that will ignite you and light a fire under your rear end to make change and to remember to be kind and to be grateful and appreciative. So we were just talking about on the last, I ended on a question, and that was, you said that, that people, they're gimmick stealers, they're vibe stealers, and you kind of stayed in your own lane. And this is very, very important. We had a guest before that on a different episode that was saying to make sure that you don't compare yourself, your beginning. It was Izzy. It was everything Izzy, pro wrestling Izzy. To don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. And it's very important that whatever your dream is, or if you're shifting right now in your career, that you surround yourself with really great people like Rob was talking about on episode 129, great mentors, great friends that help you stay on track for your dream and what it is that you want to do. And don't get caught up in the noise of the other people in your industry, because they're not, pretty much usually they're not there to help you.
I think it depends on the industry. I've got friends who are singers, who are stand-up comics who really support each other very well. Like, I think comics have, they all sleep on each other's couches and stuff, and they travel together. It's just the magic industry. And I've got a few friends, but, I learned early on to find my own path, my own way. And I wouldn't do it any other way.
Nope. And it's important. And when you do feel yourself getting a little down, or, maybe the people in your industry and that click, like it's not working, then seek solace someplace else. Like I always tell kids when I do motivational speaking in schools, like pick your friends by those who pick you. Right. I would be very surprised at some of the people that have become friends, patrons on Patreon that, I speak to them on a daily basis. They check in. I would not have thought, living in Beverly Hills before the crap hit the fan that we talked about in the last podcast, I wouldn't have pictured them as friends. I think sometimes our mentors or people that are going to come along and help us in our career, like we have a certain predestined idea of what they look like or feel like, or smell,
and are we always wrong?
Most of the time that we are. Like, be open to the people that are excited about you and that want to help you, and also be open to what it is that you can do to add value to their lives as well. One of the questions that I want to ask you with the tree trunk, can't believe my brain working properly, thank God, is you've got this warehouse that you keep referring to. You got rid of it when you were doing the Thailand opportunity, and then you've got a new warehouse, and this is like a magic place. Do you get help from? Now you've got the inspiration, you've had the dream, you've got the notepad by the bed, you've listened to music, you've seen a show. Okay, I've got this. Like, then what? Then who do you go to help physically develop this stuff?
So luckily I've got a great team. A lot of my crew has been with me for 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, a long time.
Really?
So I've got a really great core team. But we build mock-ups. There are carpenters we work with. We work with welding shops and fabrication shops, and we always make prototypes because, like, I do an illusion where I cut myself in half with a laser, and that illusion is an example. I've been prototyping and building and doing trial and error for 25 years before it finally made it to the show.
But
I had the idea when I was a kid.
you
What's
hurt
that?
yourself on that.
I did. I dislocated my shoulder performing it, but it's also my most difficult and uncomfortable and challenging illusion, so much so that we said, okay, yeah, we did get in the show. We filmed it for the Armed Forces Entertainment and Armed Forces Network TV show, which we did. But I said, this is so discomforting and painful and excruciating for me. I said, I can't do this every night. So right now we're re-engineering it again to make it more sustainable for me to be able to do two times a night if I have to. But I'm not giving up on it. We've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it and developing it over years and years and years, rebuilding. Many times we build it, we think it's right, and then have to start all over again and go back to square one. So it's a lot of that process for an illusion. Sometimes we're lucky and it happens really, really fast. But most of the time it takes several years to get it right because we have to build and rebuild and trial and error. There's no blueprint for these dreams, these ideas. And that illusion is an example. I've been prototyping and building and doing trial and error for 25 years before it finally made it to the show.
But
I had the idea when I was a kid.
You
What's
hurt
that?
yourself on that.
I did. I dislocated my shoulder performing it, but it's also my most difficult and uncomfortable and challenging illusion, so much so that we said, okay, yeah, we did get in the show. We filmed it for the Armed Forces Entertainment and Armed Forces Network TV show, which we did. But I said, this is so discomforting and painful and excruciating for me. I said, I can't do this every night. So right now we're re-engineering it again to make it more sustainable for me to be able to do two times a night if I have to. But I'm not giving up on it. We've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it and developing it over years and years and years, rebuilding. Many times we build it, we think it's right, and then have to start all over again and go back to square one. So it's a lot of that process for an illusion. Sometimes we're lucky and it happens really, really fast. But most of the time it takes several years to get it right because we have to build and rebuild and trial and error. There's no blueprint for these dreams, these ideas. So we have to make blueprints, build it, and see if it works. And if not, rebuild it or change it or try again until it's functional and technically ready. And then it can take months to stage and rehearse and get into the show.
What does that cost for a new trick?
The laser has, if we added up all the expenses over 20 plus years, it's several $100,000 probably.
Yeah.
Some other ones, $20,000 to $50,000. Once you take in all the time and the building, the rehearsal, the engineering, the design work, it's tens of thousands of dollars.
Are you like a cheapskate like I am? Do
Oh,
you
absolutely.
put your money
Absolutely.
into your craft, or so are you walking the walk, or do you just have investors that pay for everything?
Oh, no. I've never had an investor. My entire show I've built up incrementally from being a kid.
Oh
So
my God.
I started doing birthday parties and small magic shows in my hometown, and I would save all that money to buy a bigger trick and a bigger trick. So in high school, I would save up by one small second or third hand illusion, and then add it to my shows. And so really, to this day, I still we still build the show incrementally. We don't add a whole new show. We add one illusion or two illusions at a time, and they replace something that we've been doing for a while. So it still is incrementally, but everything I've done has been self-funded my whole life.
I think that is so beautiful and so important and so real. Not that I haven't been given help in my career from benefactors and investors, but and I've always asked people, like, why are you giving me this? Because honestly, Rob, most of the stuff that I've gotten is like, here's a check. It's a handshake. I don't even want, there's no terms. There's no strings attached, like nothing funky. Yeah, there's been plenty of creepy guys that have had strings attached. I can smell that one a mile away.
Of course, yeah.
But I've had a lot of really, really amazing men and huge, powerful women just say, here's $10,000, here's $20,000. And I always say, why are you giving it to me? And they say, because you're doing something. Like we can see you putting in the work. There was
They see your passion.
Well, yeah, the passion, but a lot of people have passion, but they don't have the grit and the work that goes with it. And I'm always pushing that because so many people are like, oh, I want to be like you, or how are you doing what you get off your butt and you work. And, I still have envelopes around the house and in safes that every paycheck, it sounds crazy, but I want people to hear this. Like even me, even now where I'm at, I take literally a paycheck and I will split it up into tons of $20, $30, $50 increments. And they go in a paycheck and an envelope for, you know, a new lens or a camera
Yeah.
or a gimmick or outfits or whatever, because sure, it would be nice just to take $1,000 and do this or that, but like I end up spending it on something else or a promotion. And if I just put it in an envelope and put it away, in a year, I go back and okay, I got that total Dave Ramsey gimmick. But it means so much when, you know, you really, really work for it and you build upon. And I remember I had a band member years ago that left, and you know, we wrote great songs that went on to do great things and got on the charts and made money for different charities and whatnot. And he got a really big head and went off with another group. And he's like, well, and I'm like, how can you do? Well, they love my songs. I'm like, well, your songs are like 10% you and 90 me, and that's gonna come across in the studio when you're not with me and you're going to be holding something in your hand wondering what the heck's happening, bro.
Sure.
But go do your thing. Like,
that's your choice.
That's your choice. And he just said, well, they do things like basically they get investors. And I'm like, okay, great. He's like, you just do exactly how you and I do it, where you build upon, build upon, build upon. And he just missed the boat on what the wax.
It's not about the money.
But the wax on, the wax off, the paint the fence, the, you know, the whole Mr. Miyagi, like teaching that kid, like, you have to exercise, and in many ways you exercise in the passion for health and wellness. You have to exercise your passion by chipping away and moving to the next level and seeing failures and learning and growing from that. And when everything is just given to you on a golden platter, it usually doesn't always work out the way that you want it to, because there's just been no lessons in it.
You know, I did an illusion a few years ago. It was one of the most difficult things I ever did. We had to make a 20-ton armored truck magically appear outdoors in daylight in front of tens of thousands of people. And we had less than 2 weeks to create the illusion. And we had to engineer a stage, you know, that could hold the weight of a 20-ton armored truck in it. And I didn't sleep for the 2 weeks. We pulled it off. But when that happened, it was like time kind of froze for a second. And I realized that all of my obstacles were lessons that prepared me to be able to do what I do. And it's almost just during that, it's like a cinematic moment for me. As the thing happened at work, that I saw the clients happy, the audience happy. Time really froze for a moment. And I realized it was like going like a montage flashback of all my obstacles and troubles that prepared me to be able to do this. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. You know, it's, you know, we have to turn our challenges and difficulties into learning. It doesn't mean we need to celebrate and continue suffering. You know, a lot of people have the starving artist archetype, which is not a healthy thing. But, you know, it's like, it's more about, you know, if I don't have investors, which I don't, I will find some way to do it because it will get done. And that's kind of my mentality.
That's really cool. One of the questions I had written before I even researched you was, does it frustrate you when, because I'm not a musician, I'm a musician, I'm not a magician, and I'm not
a musician, so it's perfect.
Great. I'm not an illusionist, nor will I ever be, but it frustrates me the same way, I will say, this is the downfall of professional wrestling these days, is the old school guys would, it's called kayfabe. Do you know what kayfabe means?
No.
Okay, so kayfabe is a Carney term for just keeping secrets sacred. And now you've got everybody just letting everybody know how everything's done. And it's just like an Instagram, social media world. And you appear to be one way on TV, and that's your character. And then we see you, this hardcore guy, like sitting by the pool, getting a manicure or something. It's just it's not working. Like, and it used to be sacred. And it bothers me as a layperson when I see people going, maybe you do this, so no offense if you do, your choice. Do you like when other people reveal secrets?
No, of course not.
Well, that's what people do.
Yeah, absolutely. When I went on AGT, all these people made clickbait videos trying to expose my magic. You know, Rob Lake exposed, secrets here. But the thing is, at first I was like, shit, this is terrible. But then I watched them, and it's all clickbait. It's absolute nonsense. It's hysterical. I mean, so my cast and crew, we had tears in our eyes from watching it, from laughing so hard at it. So luckily they don't get it. And the cool thing is, when I did the AGT illusions, several magicians I saw on TV growing up had emailed me or called me saying I blew their socks off. They had no idea how I did it. And they said it had to be a camera trick. And so then I said, I said it wasn't. And here's a video of it, from my live show. And they said, I have no idea how you do it. So it was exciting that some of my heroes as a kid were blown away and feeling elated, which is what I do. So even though there is exposure out there, it's not about the trick or the secret. I'll give you two quick examples. We did a corporate event in Vegas on Celine Dion's stage. The company rented out her theater for their event, and we had to make their CEO magically appear for the crowd. And we're in there, we're rehearsing, and my dear one of my favorite humans in the world was producing the event, and he's been a mentor and a leader and someone I admire. And he said, "Rob, that was amazing to hear." We walk in, there are probably 50 crew members and technical people and event people around, and we just, we didn't have time to say, "Okay, everyone turn away. We have to protect the magic secrets." We had no choice but to teach the illusion to the CEO on stage in front of the person, and all these people were there. But the thing he said, when we performed it, everyone who just watched us rehearse it was still amazing, because it's not about the technical secret. It's about the performance. It's about the wonder, and the enchantment comes from the performance. And when we did Game of Talents, that was our first show. That we filmed it in November in the COVID bubble. We had to be tested before we went out, tested on site, couldn't leave the hotel or the studio. It was in the heat of the pandemic, so it was our first show in almost a year at that point. And so I told them, I said, "We are happy to do your show, but we've got to rehearse. We can't go on camera with my assistants for the first time in a year and be rusty." So they brought us out early. They let us rehearse. We were rehearsing in a convention hall, concrete wall, concrete floor, neon lighting, nothing magical about it at all. And so on our final day of our rehearsal, we brought the producers over, the director of photography over, the lighting director. We had their whole team there, so we could say, "Here's how the illusion works," because they need to know all the details because they have to film it. And we're on the same team. So the more we tell them, the better they make it look. We have the same goal. So we walk them through the illusions, all the secrets. We said, "Shoot it this way, don't show this, can't shoot from this behind." And we explain it, and then we say, "Now we'll perform it for you." So here we are. We just taught them every detail about this trick in specific detail. We're performing it in daylight, no costumes, no lighting, no scenery, and they're videoing it. And when we perform this illusion, their jaws were on the floor.
Really?
They were blown away completely, even though they just watched it all. And that really hit home to me. It's not about the secrets. Yes, that is the point.
Yeah.
But it's all about the wonder and the enchantment and the performance that we bring that makes that what it is.
That's really powerful. Wow.
So even if people still want to be enchanted, I mean, they watch Star Wars or Harry Potter, and they know it's CGI, but they still want to believe it. So I think people overall are on our side, and a lot of it's just clickbait and jackasses trying to make money off of exposing stuff. I mean, it's also the kind of that tabloid and paparazzi mentality of violating you. I just don't want to play into that. I want to still do what I do and know that people still want to believe. And so even if something did get exposed online, I probably would still do it because people don't remember, first of all, and then people want to be enchanted. And I think it's proven that it's all about how you perform it and execute it. So same with the wrestling world. They still want to buy into the characters or the stunts, even if they know, okay, maybe it's not completely authentic. I think people overall still want to be part of the experience and are willing to suspend disbelief.
Absolutely. And, the thing is the old timers were so good at it so another term is in wrestling, it's called a shoot or a work. So obviously you should be able to figure out what a work is when you work the crowd, which means it's not real, but a shoot is very, very real. And because the old timers and the pioneers of the wrestling business were so great at it, you didn't know when they were getting carried out in a stretcher, if that was a shoot or not, if they really did get hurt because a lot of those guys back then were so freaking hardcore that they really did have a personal vendetta. There was a guy that I was dating that I remember and this is a great story for you all. I won't say who it is but anyway, we went out, we had the match. And I just remember him saying that he felt sick. He received a flying clothesline from somebody and he went down. And I just remember we were in Nashville. It was after a pay-per-view. We were at Hooters and he was saying he didn't feel good. Well, then, of course, what you do is drink more alcohol. Always a great idea. Then you go on and bounce on to the next honky tonk or the next thing. So, guys, by the end of the night, my friend, my special friend at the time, no, I'm never going to tell you who it is ever, was throwing up black blood. So it's very clear that he's got a concussion and trying to get some, almost won't say how much he weighs because you'll know who it is then, to the ER. It took literally 7 of our friends to drag this intoxicated, huge man to the ER, then proceed to sit there and not tell my relation with the guy and not let the doctor know that he's, believe it or not, this is going to be a shocker to everyone listening, that he's taking anabolic steroids. He wouldn't let me talk about like what he was taking. And I'm like, look, some treatment that they give you right now could give you a heart attack. Like, I need to disclose this. I remember him picking me up by the shirt, lifting me up and putting me down and saying, woman, you will be quiet now. And I was like, I will be quiet now. Wow. But I remember he had a full-on concussion because that guy doing the flying clothesline hated my boyfriend at the time. His taped arm had a piece of steel in it, so that he flew across and hit him he almost wanted to kill him. Well, fast forward to 2 years later, I saw my guy taping metal into his arm, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, just turn away. And I'm like, and I am not kidding. He was going to kill the guy. I know whether or not I spoke or not, that's another podcast, but that is a complete shoot. Like, you don't know that it's real or not. And some of these guys might have been friends in real life, but they never hung out at a bar or a restaurant. There was no social media. You didn't know it. You really believed that these two guys, or women and guy, were in a drag out feud. You didn't know.
Absolutely. They're enemies.
It's no fun knowing. I don't want to know how you do. That's not any of my questions is, Rob, how did you do this trick? Or how does the laser work? Like, I don't want to know. I want something to be left to the imagination, and that's a dying art.
Sure, I think so too. And I think most people feel that way. And it's just sensationalism that I don't want to play into, or give them much credit.
What's the hardest thing, or what would people not know goes into being an illusionist or I keep saying magician.
Yeah,
it's the hardest thing.
The show is probably 5% of the work. It's not just, it's, the business side, the marketing side, the logistics side. When we travel, it's 5 semi-trucks if I take the full show. And 20 plus people. And all that has to be set up in 12 hours. So when we design the illusion, we have to design how it's going to fit on the truck, how it can set up really fast so it doesn't take hours. And it's all these logistics and details go into it that no one would even think of. So the performance of the show, the fun part, is not even 5% of the workload or everything that's involved.
Wow, incredible. The quote of the year that I heard was, somebody asked you, was it a surprise when America's Got Talent called you? You submitted, was it a surprise? And your response was, I popped. No, it was like, they've been contacting me for 11, 12 years. Like, no, it wasn't a surprise. Let's take everybody, as I'm sure you're pooped out of talking about it, but it's new to this audience. Like, let's just talk about that journey a little bit and what that was like and what you got out of it that's positive that you can talk about.
Sure. So I'm usually so busy. Yes. I hardly ever watch TV. I couldn't tell you the last time I had my TV on in my house. I will watch shows, like if I'm on an international flight or a tour bus, that's when I will binge watch some kind of show. Otherwise, I don't get a chance. So I admittedly have still never seen a full episode of America's Got Talent. So just where I'm at. Now, over the years, since it came on the air, I've seen YouTube clips or snippets people send me, but I underestimated the value of the show and the size of the show. I agreed to do it thinking we'll do one episode, because a lot of acts will do one episode and then they kind of go away. You never see them again because it takes months to get through the audition round and before they go to the judges or the finals or whatever. So you forget. So I thought, let's go on the show, do one round, get 1 million YouTube views, and call it a day.
Yeah.
And we filmed our first round, and I'm there. I said, holy shit, this is a big deal. There are 300 crew members working on the show. This is a big reach. And I get on my phone, I Google, what's the viewing audience? It's like 16 million viewers for this first show. Then it re-airs on a Sunday and gets, half that again. It's like, so we do the first act. It goes great. We get the yeses. And I start making calls. I said, we've got to find a way to do round 2. This is I undervalue what this could be for the exposure. So we've got to find...
Making calls
to my management team, to my crew, because I got the dates. Round 2 will be these dates, but I was scheduled to tour Europe at the time.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. You're trying to figure out how to adjust things.
And so, but I said I've got to find a way to do round 2 because the exposure is great. I way underestimated what it would be. And a lot of the acts they were filming, 1 or 2 hours or maybe 30 minutes of an interview. They filmed hours and hours and hours of my story, my interview, me walking around, all this stuff. So I said, wow, this could be big. So my Europe team, it was actually an Armed Forces entertainment tour. And I called them, I said, hey, I've got to pause the tour. I will pay for because we had like 20 cast and crew members with me overseas. I said, I will put them all up in a hotel. I will fly myself back for the round 2, and then I'll fly back to Europe, and we'll finish the tour. Okay. And luckily, Armed Forces Entertainment agreed. So I had, I bought a hotel or accommodations for my cast and crew. They got to stay in Europe for a few days. I finished a show at a hangar in Germany. I barely made it to my 11 p.m. flight at the Frankfurt airport. I had I left. I had another crew in the U.S. who had the Illusion already there, already staged, already set up, already lit. Oh. So I flew back with my assistant, my main assistant. We landed in LA, went straight to the studio, did one rehearsal, filmed the episode. I spent, all my other time doing all the interviews and the backstory stuff. Like we actually, my parents came in for that one, but they, because my time was so limited, we filmed a lot of like the stuff supposed to, I guess, look like my home was actually the Desperate Housewives set. So, I'm walking around this neighborhood with my parents as though it's like, doing all this stuff. And I don't know how much that got aired, but, we're kind of alluding that this is our home. And it's like, it's actually, Desperate Housewives. And they did the interview stuff. And then we did the results show. As soon as that was done, I rushed back to the airport to fly back to Europe to finish my tour. So it was just, we made accommodations. And then for the third round, I had to leave Atlantis, Bahamas like a week early to go to LA to film that because it was live. And I had to film that round live.
Not for the weak-hearted. Not for the weak-hearted. And I bet, knowing you didn't complain about any of it. You just did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the show must go on. It's just all, figuring out the logistics and making it happen.
That's another thing. If there's something that you really want, you have to be willing to put in the work and know that there's going to be like a lot of the entrepreneurs that you see, a lot of the workers, wrestlers, independent artists, like if they're getting somewhere, there's just a lot of hustle that you don't see. I've got a new show that's airing on TLC on Monday, and I'm scared and nervous. Thank you. I'm scared and nervous just because it's not, it's no secret. I'm kind of trying to do things covertly. Like I think the support that I would like to have there isn't, maybe it's not that it's not there, Rob. It's just like it's new and
they don't understand it yet.
They don't understand it yet. And I'm like promotional machine, like ready to go. Like, where's the graphics? What are we doing? And then it's like, well, you can't put that up or and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to put something up. I mean, like in the middle of these, there's going to be drops and things.
Sure.
I don't think people realize like what goes into, I mean, and thank you for being my guest today, but I'm not getting rich off of doing podcasting. That's not why I do it. I do it because it ties together a really great group of people and a network that I have for when Absolutely. I need it or when you need it. If you've got something, which we're going to segue into the Harry Potter show and plan that you're working on. We want to end this second half 120 podcast with that. There's just a lot that goes into it, and all of the stuff that you've done and all the failures and successes all accumulate into knowledge and in this stew, if you will, and it sifts around and simmers and cooks, and then something new comes out of it, like this Harry Potter like what is it? I just heard.
So it's a Philharmonic Harry Potter arena tour where the orchestra plays the film score with the movie clips. And I'm designing, and actually this week we're building and finishing a lot of really cool special effects and illusions. So while the show and the music is happening, there's actually magic and wizards in the show. Some of the film actors are hosting the show and in the show, and I've created illusions so they can actually be doing spells and magic in the show while the orchestra plays the music from the movies.
So this is like a whole, but this is going to cost a lot of money and time, and it's just for this one thing, or will this show? Oh,
it's going to tour. It'll be touring Europe, and actually we have 2 simultaneous tours going around Europe at the same time, starting this fall.
One with you and one without. Or?
I will be making occasional appearances in the show, but a lot of it is the illusions I've created for the magical world of Harry Potter to be happening. You don't need an illusion if a wizard or a wizard actor is there. So as illusions of magic I've created, but it's created to make the Harry Potter world come alive, I guess.
How does that paywall work? So then you just are basically commissioned to help create illusions for this tour.
It's like a scenic designer or a lighting designer. It's like a creative designer. So I'm also designing for a few Broadway shows and projects that are pushed back a little bit further now. But I'm passionate about the theater. It's one of my other loves and obsessions. So it's excited to get to create magic and illusions in the worlds I want to play in. So theater's just Broadway musicals and plays and this Harry Potter concert experience.
53 minutes. We're going to punch if you don't want to answer this next question or not. You can refuse.
Oh, this will be episode 3, right?
No, you can refuse, and then I'll just punch out like I never asked it. But if you don't want to talk about your personal life, are you married? Do you have kids? Do you have a family? Do you not talk about that?
Sure. I am married to my work. I am a workaholic.
I was just like, there, because people say, how do you do all the things you do, Golden? Like, I don't have any pets. I don't have a kid, and I'm not married. Like, that's how I burn the candle.
I do have a dog. I got an amazing rescue dog that keeps me sane. He keeps me sane and happy and wonderful. And I actually come home every year to do benefit shows for animal rescue groups in my hometown, in my home state. So
we do the same. Our band does the same thing.
Rob.
Yeah. We do. We got this little song called "Let's Take a Ride." Let's take a ride. We'll go outside. It's stupid, and it is really stupid. We go to whenever we're touring. We stop at either the Humane Society, the ASPCA, or the SPCA. And we literally go bring 30 animals. They're starting to make us take cats now because nobody ever talked about the cats. Yeah. We take them all for like a 5-minute ride. We slate them and we put them to the music video and let everybody know like what their sexy name is. I always come up with the sexy handle for each animal.
Sure, of course.
Talk a little bit about them, and then we do a tour of the shelter and talk about the people that are working there and the volunteers, and we put it up on. It gets hundreds of thousands of views.
Isn't it amazing?
And the little guys get adopted.
I know.
Adopt, don't shop, please.
Oh, absolutely, yes. That's I hashtag it all the time, and I mean it. Is that my the two biggest causes I support the most are animal rescue, and then of course the military. And but the benefit show, we didn't have it last year. Hopefully, we'll get it this fall. It's one of the groups we do is called Friends for Folks. It's the prison dog program, where they take the unwanted, unadoptable dogs from the shelters, and they take them to the prisons where the prisoners do the training program for them, and most of those dogs become service animals, or at least they become very adoptable because they're now well trained. So it's saves so many lives. It saves the dog's life, of course, and then when you take that dog out of the shelter, another one comes in. It helps the prisoners out, and of course, most of all, I think it enriches the person who adopts it.
Oh, I totally agree. And so when you do the tours, is it USO or is it AFE?
It's AFE. Yep, AFE. But so we have to do 4 shows a day sometimes because we.
I know, because I've done them too. So you said you've done them every year for 20 years.
15 years, yeah. This would have been our 15th year.
So how many times have you gone to Afghanistan?
We don't go downrange. We usually go to the bases that have the families. So we've done all the European ones, all the Asian ones, the Pacific ones, because our show is family friendly, so that the service members can bring their families to our show.
Have you done Osan, Korea?
I have not yet.
Okay, all right. So we've only done like those, the Korean and the Afghanistan and Iraq and all that. Okay, yeah. Don't you find the biggest value from that is I found that it doesn't matter like what I'm performing. It's like they want to talk afterwards.
I do autographs at every show. Yeah. Every show I do. And sometimes it can take hours. It's but especially not just the military shows, but especially the military shows. I mean it's every show I'll do meet and greet, and it's my way of saying thank you to the audience, and you also get direct feedback. They tell you if something was great or exposed. I'll hear it exactly. But in the military shows, I will wait as long as it takes, especially for those shows, and it's the absolute least I could do. But yeah, they all want to say hi and talk and say hi, and they always try to put an autograph table down for me to sit behind. I refuse. I will stand in front of it so I can, really greet them face to face and pose better for pictures. So
you are just absolutely incredible. This has been Goldy's Closet. This is the second half. We started out on 129. This is episode 130 on the all new Badass Realm Network with Russo's brand in conjunction with me, yours truly, Goldy. And this has been our incredible guest, Rob Lake. You can look at the bottom ticker and make sure that you show some love on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and any other platform, especially his website. Rob Lake Music is his handle.
Rob Lake Magic.
Rob Lake Music, my bad.
Magic.
Magic. And it is, I listed it there too.
Yep, you
so
got
if
it.
I'm making mistakes, at least I can read. And we just want to thank our guest for his time and waiting for, hold on. We want to thank our guest for his time and graciousness and just absolutely amazing attitude with everything. Rob, thank you so much. Once again, we always clap at the end.
Thank you.
Be free, stay golden.